Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. I would like to pray to the God of dislikes. I would like to ask my viewers to please continue praying for me by singing along with me, gesturing at your screen, and hitting the dislike button. We're coming up to Thanksgiving. And I want to pray that this is going to be the best Thanksgiving I ever had because previous Thanksgivings have not always turned out very well. Thanksgiving is a very easy holiday for people to take advantage of me in various regards. Um, Last year, my most notable one actually, last year I was living in a house. The house had suffered major emergencies. Water pipe had burst. You guys remember I shot a number of videos in it when we didn't even have carpet. My landlord who lived there was dragging her feet, and I really didn't have room to push back. I really love my job. I don't like to make waves with things that might affect my performance, right? I am autistic as well. If I try to overload myself with speaking up for myself at home, a lot of times my circuits get overloaded. It starts to spill out to my performance at work. I wasn't about to allow that to happen. Also, at the time, I was really struggling with my dating life. You guys remember that, right? I offered a 1 ounce gold coin for anybody to set me up on a blind date. And eventually, a friend of mine at church set me up on the date. And long story short, we did hit off some things. And for the first time in a long time, I had a Thanksgiving party to go to. So when I got home from the party, I was in high spirits. You guys can look at what day thing. I think it was the 28th of November last year. I got home, my landlord asked, "Hey, did you mind paying your rent early? If you have it now?" We were using Zelle. Now the thing is, I had it in my account, but I really think my landlord took advantage of how high my spirits were. Now looking back at it, because she knew about the whole dating situation, she knew about um, that I had struggled in that department, and then I had brought the girl over a couple of times, and I in retrospect, I feel taken advantage of. Now, I had the money in my account. The problem was that we still didn't get the floor fixed. I should have said, I have it, but do you want to call the people working on the floor before I give it to you? Or should I pay them directly? I should have done something like that in retrospect. I think the problem is that I don't have a whole lot of bandwidth, right? As a single guy, I have to carry my work, I have to carry speaking up for myself at home. I have to carry all the other torches in my life, dating life, hobbies, keeping good health, which is not a trivial matter for me. I am autistic and I battled a few other hidden health conditions. A lot of people don't see all of this that I drag around, right? Okay. 2 years ago on Thanksgiving, I had another house that gave me a lot of heck. What had happened was I was living in a 5 bedroom house. The owner of that house had hired uh, one of her nephews to manage the place. Now, the house has a kitchen with a curtain and a study room on the other side of the curtain. For some reason, there was no wall between the two. And now looking back at it, I wish I had sat down with that guy on a Saturday afternoon and talked to him. What had happened was he complained incessantly about noises and all that. I never woke anybody up or disturbed anybody, but he complained incessantly every time I used the kitchen. You know, I'm a late night kind of person. I sometimes do stargazing, I'm out late. And in retrospect, again, this is one of those things. It's so easy in retrospect, but at the time, you got to remember, I was juggling 2 jobs. the art careers and all the other fun stuff and the unsuccessful dating life. And so I didn't think about it. Now looking back at it, I should have sat down with him on a Saturday afternoon and find out what was going on. Chances are the noise wasn't even the main problem. After all, a lot of times when he complained about it, he was wide awake and I wasn't waking anybody up. And chances are there was something else, right? I could have also talked to the owner of the place. You know, the other thing that deterred me from doing that was, and this is a lesson that I learned, I used to keep a lot of my art at home because I was proud of it. Unfortunately, it pigeonholed every time I wanted to talk to my landlord or the owner, the manager of the place. It created a lot of anxiety surrounding my stuff. I couldn't just up and walk out of there and go to a different home or right. I you know I and in retrospect, maybe he was upset at how I had decorated the whole place with all my art. Maybe he wanted the space for himself, but had I sat down with him to find out about it, it would have been a lot more sane than walking on eggshells the whole time I was there. But unfortunately, two jobs, art career, and not having a dating life really wore me down, and I really didn't think of a good solution at the time. I will admit that that's a big problem for me. I feel a lot better this year, in large part because of my financial situation. I own a lot of mining stocks, and on paper, my net worth crossed of seven figures this year. And I find that a lot of these things don't bother me so much anymore. I have options when push comes to shove. And so like earlier today, I had a difficult. I don't think this is intentional. I think my work of my boss got busy or something, and didn't. I asked her, "Hey, what's going on? We haven't gotten our schedule yet." It's a funny footnote, right? In the past, it would have been a much bigger issue. In fact, I'm kind of looking forward to not getting a schedule so I can schedule my own life next week. And if she calls me last minute, if I'm available, I'm available. If not, I'm sorry. I didn't hear about this until today, right? This is not the kind of attitude I could have carried 2 years ago, just because of financial constraint. 3 years ago, I was working at a different tutoring center, and again, my boss sometimes didn't send schedule. In fact, very similar to what happened today, except I only had a few $100,000 at the time. Right now, I have 1.1 to 1.2 million. It's fallen a little bit this past week, fortunately, because I want to accumulate more. Right. So, um, and I really loved all of my students. I think my boss leveraged the fact that I loved all of my students to my detriment, if you could believe that. I was juggling that and my art career. I didn't have the job at the community college yet, but I was juggling financial difficulty. I just moved to Phoenix. We had just come out of a difficult pandemic. And also, I noticed somebody had left hundreds of dislikes on my channel. This was before I started chanting dislike. And so I was lost. And I at the time, I had a little bit of a dilemma. I had just moved to Phoenix. I had a lot of uncertainty with making new friends here, but at the same time, we had just relaxed some of the pandemic restrictions. I was thinking about going to visit my family in Taiwan, but I worried that I would miss social opportunities here, and it created a lot of a mental jam, if you will. And that particular Thanksgiving, I can still remember the students I was working with during the Thanksgiving, and I really got along with all of the students. The other thing that bothered me at my workplace was that one day I was in the middle of my bismuth art, and my boss called me last minute, and I was scrambling, And when I got to the office, I was a huge mess. I hadn't had a good chance to really clean up and take a shower and change clothes. I smelled of bismuth all over me. Well, technically, bismuth doesn't have a smell, but sometimes when you work with bismuth, there's a lot of heat, right? And the body oils and burners, sometimes it creates this oxidation kind of smell. I carried that smell to work because I didn't have time to clean up. That's the kind of drama I ran into. The unpredictable schedule created a lot of that. And I another problem is that Thanksgiving is Thursday, right? And my work schedule was so unpredictable. I couldn't plan a trip until literally the day of Thanksgiving. And so obviously I couldn't go very far because trying to buy airline tickets within hours is going to be like astronomically expensive. And also the other upset was that I didn't get along with my boss. I wanted to know when he was going to go on vacation so that I could choose a different week to go on vacation in order to maximize my time away from him. But he was tight-lipped about it. He said he didn't know and all that. One day, he asked me to talk to somebody on his cell phone. He had one of his clients on his cell phone. He gave me the phone to talk to him. And I went to one of the study rooms within the tutoring center to take the call. And while there, it occurred to me, let me snoop around his phone. And beautifully, he was texting one of his family, I'll meet you at so-and-so airport, whatever day. And all along, he was telling me he didn't have plans to go see his family. It created a lot of trust issue. Obviously, I can't tell him that I was snooping around his phone, but I scheduled my vacation. But it created a lot of trust issue between myself and my boss. The year before that, I was working in Seattle, Washington at yet another tutoring center. I really got along with one of my students. It was Thanksgiving Eve. And we had a really busy day. First couple of hours, just me and my boss, because you can imagine a lot of people. This is when we just started reopening traveling. Thanksgiving 2021. The final hour, my favorite student comes. Give you an idea, she's a fifth grader studying pre-calculus already. You can imagine just how much I like working with her. But then my boss says, "Oh, you can leave now." It was very upsetting because, after all, I stayed behind for these wonky schedules when I could have been taking a Thanksgiving vacation myself, right? And to ask me to leave after what should have been a 4-hour shift, to ask me to leave after 3 when the first 3 hours were just hectic in the first place. I thought he should have at least paid me for that fourth hour, even if he didn't want me there. When I got the pay stub at the end of November, I discovered he didn't pay me for the fourth hour. It's not a lot of money. It's an upset. Even today, as a millionaire, if I got shafted $20, especially being asked to leave on during my favorite hour of the work, when I go there during a difficult day, I'd still be upset by the principle of the matter. I've learned really hard, and it's still hard for me to do, to separate principles from work, right? But it's still very hard for me today. Now that I have a little bit more security under my belt, I probably would speak up. And if that same situation happened this Thanksgiving Eve, hey, I came here during those really tough hours, and this is one of my favorite students. Can I stay here? Right? I probably would at least say that, right? And also, my boss, and unfortunately, this is every boss, was very unapologetic about it. It wasn't even like he apologized, saying, due to the pandemic, our hours are tight, I apologize, I'll make up for this some other. No, he didn't even say that. He was cold about it. Oh man, so unfortunately, that's pretty much every boss that I've ever run into. I've kind of learned to tune that out as well. But anyway, that was my last 4 Thanksgivings. All of them brought me a lot of sorrow. At least last year, I got to meet some important figures in my life. It didn't turn out to be a long-term relationship, but they were important figures in my life. And home 2 years ago, there was a girl I could have made a move on, but that apartment manager made so much noise that I got totally distracted out of it. And the other two Thanksgivings, I loved all the students I worked with. In an ideal world, the boss and the management wouldn't have made that work so heavy. It could have been a win-win for everybody involved. But I think they want to keep a tight leash on everything because not everybody's going to treat tutoring as a win-win like I would, right? So that's the problem there. Why don't we pray that we don't repeat those last four Thanksgivings? And you can pray for me by singing along with me, gesturing at your screen, and leaving a dislike on this video. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.